Love.
Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host Mitchell J. Rabin, and we're very glad you're joining us again today. Today we're going to have another very interesting show. It's going to be about Sahaja Yoga. We have with us one of the earliest first practitioners in the United States, Andrea Cousins, who's come on to speak to us about this really wonderful, incredibly simple, and very beautiful technique of doing yoga. It's not Hatha yoga, it is yoga, which of course, as many of you already know, means union. It means union with the divine, taking our physical selves and merging it with our divine selves. And Andrea will be speaking with us about this particular idea as it relates to and is expressed through Sahaja Yoga, which is helping people across the world. It's one of the few yogas that has been very scientifically studied and researched, and the results are nothing short of impressive. Andrea, great to have you.
It's good to be here, Mitch.
Good.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you really to Mark Becker at the New Life Expo, because that's where we met. And it was through that I had my Kundalini risen. Yes, my self-realization. Not quite there, but
I hear you.
where I first had the opportunity to meet you and to experience some of the beauty and magic, the subtle magic of Sahaja Yoga.
Well, we go to that fair, I guess yearly, because we get an opportunity to meet so many great seekers, people who are really understanding that there's so much more to life than, getting your paycheck and what kind of car you drive. And so the seekers definitely are there. And usually Sahaja Yoga is a place that they sort of flock to, because it is, as you say, a gentle experience. It's an experience that not only is instantaneous and spontaneous, which, by the way, is what Sahaja means. It means spontaneous.
In Sanskrit?
In Sanskrit. So as you were saying, yoga means union. So Sahaja Yoga means spontaneous union. And it is the spontaneous awakening of Kundalini. And people leave really feeling quite transformed. And it's also our way of letting people know that we are here, and we have workshops that go on all over the country, and they're free, which is something that you don't always hear.
Yeah, right.
Because Sahaja Yoga has never, ever, ever, ever had a cost attached to it.
That is remarkable, because everything, usually, virtually everything has a price tag attached to it.
I know. Well, Sri Mataji Nirmala Devi, who is the founder of Sahaja Yoga, introduced it in 1970. And
who was she? Could you give a little description of who she was?
Yeah, well, she is. Sri Mataji Nirmala Devi is the founder, as I said, of Sahaja Yoga. In 1970, she introduced it. But basically, she had been born as a fully realized being. She came with the understanding that her task, frankly, was to allow people to tap that resource within them, which is Kundalini. Now, you and I both know that people understand Kundalini is an energy. Many people, certainly your listeners and your viewers who are astute, know that Kundalini is an energy, but also we've heard that it's hard to access, that you can't really raise Kundalini, and if you do, it's a problem, and so on and so forth. Sri Mataji knew that this was the time for people en masse to have Kundalini awakening. And so she set out as her task to find a way that everybody, no matter where they were, no matter whether you understood it or not, no matter what language you spoke, would be able to experience Kundalini. So that's what she set to work to do. But prior to that, though, she was in India. Her parents.
Was she a politician?
No. She was born to the Salve family in Chhindwara, India, in 1923, and it was prior to India's independence. Her family were quite well off, but gave up everything to become part of Gandhi's ashram and Gandhi's movement for independence.
Wow.
So Sri Mataji in Gandhi's ashram, frankly, was recognized as having wonderful gifts, and apparently Gandhi would talk to her about even things like the chakras and developing different songs and so on and so forth. She was called Nepali by Gandhi because of her unique spiritual qualities. She was one of the leaders of the youth movement in the independence struggle. Her father, who was a constitutional lawyer, actually helped to write India's new constitution when they received independence.
Wow.
She, from there, went and studied medicine. She subsequently married her husband, Sir C.P. Srivastava, and they are, I believe that was in 1947. So they've been married quite a long time, and Sir C.P. is quite astounding as well. He was the first Indian knighted by the Queen, and had been the Secretary General of the United Nations Maritime Organization for 16 years. So Sri Mataji's life is so extraordinary, especially for an Indian woman, because the culture is not always really supportive of certainly a woman who wants to go out and start a movement.
Yeah, right.
But
do anything but cook
yes,
and clean
absolutely. And
babies.
certainly when you have a husband who's quite influential in a family that's so on. But she knew, again, that it was her mission, her reason for being, because of her spiritual depth. Sri Mataji is frankly known as an avatar. And she has come to do this. So she just needed to find a way to make it clear so that when people got this gift, they would recognize it. And that's how Sahaja Yoga became Sahaja Yoga. It's not only raising the Kundalini, but how do you get to the point where people understand that something has happened? And even though, unlike the Buddha, you know, we are just having that awakening of Kundalini, but then all of the balancing and all of the detachment and all of the real growth spiritually that has to happen, right, has to then go back and be done. And so not only does she teach the fact that Kundalini can be raised spontaneously, raise the Kundalini, she then has developed the technology and the techniques to help you go back and do the work.
Mm-hmm. Good. Otherwise we'll have a lot of
Yes.
Kundalini risen.
That's right.
And a lot of people who don't know how
Who
to
don't
manage
progress.
it. Yeah,
Exactly.
Because it's a step-by-step path, no matter what.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
life's path.
And that's one of the
way.
things, you know, when people say, oh, Kundalini is spontaneous, it's very difficult for people to understand that they still have to do the work. People feel the energy when Kundalini is awakened. They feel the peace.
Yes.
And then they feel that, okay, fine, now I can go in, you know, on my life's journey because I now am armed with this additional support. Yes, to some extent.
What would you say are some of the techniques? What does she teach when she's helping people integrate the risen Kundalini in their lives? What does that look like?
Well, what she teaches is that there is a subtle system that each of us has. And that subtle system generally consists of 7 main chakras. And that those chakras are responsible for our physical, our mental, our spiritual, and our emotional well-being. And that each of these chakras, when nurtured by the Kundalini, begin to adopt the qualities that are qualities, frankly, that reflect, the divine. Right. And so Kundalini rises, she pierces the chakras, and she gets to work. We would not necessarily know that.
She meaning the Kundalini, by the way.
She meaning the Kundalini. Thank you for
maternal,
explaining. It is
nurturing, gentle energy.
You knew all this.
I've been studying.
I know, and
And
a
I
good
have a good
student
teacher.
you are. But yes, it is a maternal energy, and she evolves, she teaches, she heals, she does all these things that one wants to believe that a very good mother does. And so when the Kundalini energy ascends and goes to each of these chakras, if there's a blockage, she begins to remove the blockage. The blockage is what causes us the distresses, the dis-ease, the illnesses, the emotional imbalances, the worries, the insecurity, all of those things that manifest, that make our lives not so happy, are the things that the Kundalini, in her graciousness, begins to correct. And so that's what you learn. You learn the subtle system. You learn that the Kundalini's the subtle system is reflected on our extremities, on our fingers, on our toes, and you can also feel different parts of the body, how the chakra is placed. Very simply, when Kundalini rises, if, say, you have a problem in your throat chakra, you will feel a tingling, or you might feel some heat on your index finger. If you're feeling very guilty, the tingling will be on the left hand finger. If you
Index
are
finger.
on the index finger. If you are very aggressive.
Why would guilt associate or correspond with that finger?
Because this chakra is the chakra of communication.
Sure.
It's the Vishuddhi chakra. And so it is also the base of this ego. So it sort of is right there where one does the outreach, and it also
Yes.
is at the base of what one thinks one is, or what one is conditioned to be like. So that if one feels guilty, that guilt kind of lodges right here in this chakra of communication, and this chakra that supports this other chakra, which has the ego and the superego and the conditionings.
But how does that relate to the index finger?
Well, I'm saying that each of the chakras has an appearance on the hand.
Okay, and
So
it just happens that the
it
throat chakra
happens that the
relates to
throat-
the right index finger.
The throat chakra relates to the index finger.
Both.
The quality or
guilt.
of guilt is something that you would feel on the left.
I see.
If you are aggressive in your speech pattern, if you are abusing the way you use your voice, even smoking, you will feel an irritation on the right finger. Now, the left side is what is spiritual and the emotional side, and the right side is the physical and mental side. So that when we talk about emotions such as guilt, the reason why it makes its appearance on the left side is because that's what the left side
Yes, it
on the
is
subtle
involved in
system
emotion.
does. So
Right.
it's
So basically, she teaches subtle body anatomy
yes,
and people's ability to relate and understand the different functions of the chakras, what they are on their shadow side, what they are on their higher side.
Absolutely.
So that their lives can begin to shine.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Now, how big is the organization?
The organization is international. Sahaja Yoga is practiced in 90 plus countries. Sri Mataji was just in Turkey, where CNN covered the event, and thousands, thousands
Where A
were
Better
out there
World
to
is
get.
covering it in New York.
See? Well, and I'm here.
Yes, and you're
I
here.
was not in Turkey here.
That's right.
So
I feel
Sahaja-
especially fortunate.
Yes, well, you know, I think that, again, the work of getting information such as this out is so very important, and so
Truly.
shows like A Better World, despite CNN,
Yes,
you know,
right. Thank you,
really,
Andrea.
yeah, does.
So, but CNN
does the
was
job.
interested
Absolutely.
in the subject. That's
yes,
a breakthrough.
and covered it.
That's great.
Yeah, because I think, again, it's growing. It's been very difficult, I think, certainly in America, to let people know about Sahaja Yoga, because, again, going back to the cost analysis and the fact that there is none, and we are so ready to dismiss
funny.
things that
People, Andrea, are suspicious if you charge money and it's a spiritual enterprise of some sort. Aha, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And then they're especially suspicious if you don't charge money.
That's exactly
What does
right.
that mean? You know, like,
yeah,
hard to please.
it's a catch-22.
It's a very odd
It's a
situation.
catch-22.
How many people do you have, do you know? How many participants,
You know-
students internationally?
Frankly, I couldn't tell you, because
Is it
people.
in the many thousands?
Oh, there's certainly many thousands.
This began only 32 years ago in 1970.
in 1970, and
So-
the people, you know, we distinguish.
That's not old for yoga.
It's, I guess, well,
In comparison
well,
to
Sri
the others.
Mataji will say that Sahaja Yoga itself is ancient knowledge.
Yes,
you know,
indeed.
it's
really
just a technique,
her
exactly.
formulation of it and
Precisely.
relabeling,
Absolutely.
so to speak.
Absolutely.
And her physical presence this time.
That's right.
That gives
That's
it
right.
a certain imprimatur.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But you also, and I made reference to this at the beginning, Andrea, have an impressive body of literature, scientific literature at that. In fact, I did have the Australian physician
That's
on
right.
who discussed some of this.
Yes.
Could you just give us a little encapsulation of what the scientifically proven
Yes.
results are of Sahaja Yoga, which are not to be found in any other spiritual disciplines and meditation studies, practices that were studied.
Well, I'm glad that you did have Dr. Minosha on, because he has done some incredible work. I mean, he has looked at migraines, he's looked at ADD, asthma, hot flashes, things that obviously in today's world are really, causing people a good deal of frustration in terms of how to deal with them. And Sahaja Yoga has just begun in its beginning research stage to have shown that it can significantly improve people's health. Asthma, I mean, that's incredible, because as I told you earlier off camera, I had suffered from asthma for quite some time. And my 10-year-old son, who I fully expected would have asthma, did. And I expected that he would go through a lifetime of asthma. When I met Sri Mataji and started practicing Sahaja Yoga and started again learning the relationship between the Kundalini, the awakening, the chakra, and how a chakra that's out of balance can cause physical problems such as asthma, and how with working with Kundalini energy, one can start correcting and reversing some of those problems. I was surprised, but I did it, and sure enough, I stopped wheezing, and my 10-year-old was able to, by the time he graduated from high school, be the scholar athlete captain of the football team. So I knew from a personal level that Sahaja Yoga cured asthma. I was really delighted that on a scientific level, they've begun to see real indicators that Sahaja Yoga is something to do when one has asthma. ADD is another thing that, again, how many children can you put on Ritalin? There
probably shouldn't be any.
Yeah, so there has to be, and I know that there are certainly people who are looking at different types of non-medical interventive ways to do it. But again, Sahaja Yoga has shown that the children, they like to do it, they do it, and it allows them to be calm and not, manifest the behaviors that come along with ADD once practiced systematically. And again, these experiments are controlled, they continue, and I am looking forward to more and more breakthroughs as more and more, diseases are being examined with the use of Sahaja Yoga.
Well, one of the impressive pieces of information that the physician shared with us is not only is Sahaja Yoga yielding these kinds of results that you're referring to, but when compared with other meditative techniques, some of them also ancient, some of them also Indian, they still weren't able to measure up at all significantly in the way Sahaja Yoga is, which suggests that there's something going on with this particular technique, whether it's the technique or whether it's the empowerment of it through the primary founder, Mataji, or I don't know what, but there's something in it that is organically affecting the lives of people distinctly from other techniques.
Well, I think,
it's really notable.
I mean, it's incredible, and of course, I think all of those things that you said are true. But
at least that's what the evidence shows so far.
Yeah, no, I mean, in terms of whether or not it's you were saying that you weren't sure whether it was the technique or whether it was the founder and so on and so. And I'm saying all of those things are true. But one of the most important things that I can say about Sahaja Yoga is that Sri Mataji is certainly here to do what she does. She is absolutely the consummate master of Kundalini. However, that mastery is something that she's imparted to each of us. And so it's something,
yes. Very important point.
That you can...
The inner guru.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely. So we certainly, we certainly want Sri Mataji always, to be, but she has given us this information and this knowledge
tool
that you can raise the Kundalini of others.
Yes. So. This is a very important thing, and I respect gurus and high-level yogis, and we've had them on the show many a time. And it comes down to the way I see is there is no need for any intermediary at all. That it is
It's your own
God's
power.
grace, that
Exactly.
and the nature of consciousness
Exactly.
itself, that we all participate in to the extent that we choose. And
right.
sometimes it's brought forth in ways we haven't counted on.
That's right.
And so without there being such a guru-disciple relationship in this setup, I think it's all the more empowering to the individuals who follow it.
Absolutely.
Could you give us, because our time is beginning to run short, even though it's illusory, a demonstration of some sort that would at least cue people into a little bit of what it is?
Okay. As you discussed earlier, this is not Hatha Yoga, so that anyone coming to a Sahaja Yoga class need not bring any mats.
I see, right.
They don't have to worry about any
Loose-fitting clothing.
postures or loose-fitting clothing. Sahaja Yoga is a spontaneous event, and the Kundalini is inside, and when it rises very easily. When one comes to a Sahaja Yoga meditation meeting, there will probably be a brief meditation. You will raise your Kundalini. You'll be taught to raise your Kundalini, but again, very simple hand motions that begin at the base of the spine, and the left hand is steady while the right hand encircles it. And you just raise this Kundalini up to the very top of the head, and you make a tying motion. You do that 3 times. Again, as you'll learn, and probably as many of your listeners know, there's a left side channel, and there's a right side channel, and there's a central channel. And so with the awakening of Kundalini, we take all of that into consideration. The left side channel of the past, very often we talked about it as the emotional and the spiritual, but it also holds a lot of what we've
Karma.
shoved in there in the past. And the right side, being physical, mental, also holds future. And then the center path is the path of the present, and that's the path of evolution. So when the hand motion raises the Kundalini and proceeds to make its way up those paths. And then there is a bandhan that one uses, and that again, because once the chakras are all awakened, then this is merely a protection, protects the energy, and just helps as you go out about your day. But that's the beginning.
A protective sealed
Right.
shield of some sort?
Right, because now your chakras are open.
Right.
It's just like anything else.
Right.
So
and you're dealing with the elements.
Absolutely, and the energy
Hazards
is out
of the
there,
material world.
and the subtle world.
Yes. Oh, yes. Exactly. Good point.
So it's a protection as well. But in between that, of course, is the meditation, and in between that is where you begin to experience the depth of Kundalini, the peace of Kundalini, the thoughtless awareness, which I know people almost think can never happen, but actually when Kundalini rises, you do become thoughtless. And as you practice the meditation longer, you can become thoughtless longer. And that's good because it clears your mind and it clears the space.
Our culture doesn't understand
Doesn't understand it. Doesn't understand it.
More
but once,
thoughts, better.
Yeah.
Less
yeah.
thoughts, scary.
Yeah. No, well, you know,
What's wrong with you?
those of us who understand that having the mind churn endlessly silly things going on and on and on are not good. And that
Wasting a lot of energy. Actually.
Yes, and that having, what did they say very, very succinctly? Silence is golden.
Yeah.
It's true. Silence is golden. And if we can understand that silence can be part of our everyday existence and we can get out of our own way and enjoy the blessings, then we grow.
Yes.
And by staying in the present, which is something else that happens when Kundalini rises, we are able to be not only thoughtlessly aware, but the key word here is aware. And so as we go about our day-to-day lives, we create circumstances that allow us not to really have to worry about the future because we're awake and we're aware and we're doing the things that we ought to be doing now in the present. So there's certainly a lot to be said for being thoughtless and a lot, obviously, to be said about Sahaja Yoga and awakening Kundalini. But before you let me go, I wanted to let your viewers know that Sri Mataji will be in America. And there will be a program on August 22nd at the Ethical Cultural Auditorium, which is in Manhattan at 2 West 64th Street. The program will start at 7 o'clock. It's free because, again, all of our programs are free.
Everything is free.
Everything. And it will be a night where Sri Mataji herself will come, and of course that's rare because she does spend her time traveling the world, and she gets to America maybe about once a year. So.
Oh, that sounds very special.
It is.
That sounds
Really
very
is.
special. Well, I believe that it's fair to say that you are a wonderful example of someone who has been practicing on this path for a long time, because you're not only beautiful, but also beautifully centered. And I have a feeling that the beauty inside radiates outward, which is also another ancient principle of spiritual practice.
Well, you've got to be the best host. I've been interviewed before, but certainly, sir, your style, your technique are impressive. And again, the work you do is so very important. So I really appreciate the time.
Oh, sure. My pleasure. Thanks for being a guest on the show.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Wow. I hope you're feeling more relaxed. I mean, I know I am just in listening. It's really true. If you can make it to the Cultural Society to hear Sri Mataji, I think that would be a wonderful thing. And in any event, go to the website, make a call, and come to the meetings. They're almost every week in town and spread out actually across the world. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you all next week.